From Topps comes the all-new digital card collecting app, free to download from iTunes or Google Play. Star Wars Card Trader.
For the first time ever, collect and trade everything from legendary 1977 Star Wars cards to new cards featuring exclusive content from Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens.
All from the comfort of your mobile devices. Star Wars Card Trader.
These are the cards you're looking for.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z and Corey Clubb, the podcast you're looking for. This is. Yes.
For an entire generation, people have experienced Star Wars the only way it's been possible, on the TV screen. But if you've only seen it this way, you haven't seen it at all.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
We've been waiting for you.
The Force is strong here, even stronger than the coffee.
At last! Where have you been?
Welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. Here are your hosts, Dan Z and Corey Clubb.
Hello, this is Dan Z, and welcome to show number 53 of Coffee with Kenobi. We are a Star Wars podcast that analyzes our favorite saga in a whole new way. With me is my good friend and co-host, Corey Clubb.
Hello, everybody. A special shout out to Joe Taylor, Dennis Keithley, Daniel, Angela Souse, Neil Lowry, Mediocre Jedi, Nick DeCalandria, Mike Winder, Aaron Harris, Mark Sutter, Jesse, and Mike Audette for their contributions to Coffee with Kenobi's Patreon page. By supporting our Patreon page, you too can help the show in so many ways and can also win a coffee chat podcast of your very own. Check out our webpage or the show notes for more information. You can also support our show through our Amazon.com, Fandango, Cufflinks.com, Her Universe, and Zach Designs affiliate links on the site. Thank you for your generosity to the Coffee with Kenobi family.
In today's show, we have two guests joining us. First, we have Rancho Obi-Wan Steve Sansweet, as well as Patreon contributor Connor Daniels. Connor joins us to discuss our topic for show number 53, The Force Awakens through the eyes of a new generation. We will also discuss the new Force for Change campaign, Coffee and the Clone Wars. Nick DeCalandria returns with a look at Star Wars video games.
In Collector's News, we catch up with Steve to find out our latest from Rancho Obi-Wan, as well as get his thoughts on The Force Awakens and the Rogue One teaser trailer, as well as Rogue One packaging. We also share more of your feedback and introduce our topic for show number 54.
And now, let's see what's brewing in the Star Wars universe this week.
Oh, wait. This is interesting.
You found something.
I'm about to let everyone in on the secret.
For our first news story, no doubt everyone listening to our show has seen the amazing things that's happened through Star Wars and the Force for Change. And there's a new campaign. They're actually on week 3 of it now, but this is the first time we're able to talk about it. And there are 4 charities to choose from. And if you create your own fundraising campaign, 100% of the money goes to the charity of your choice. And we chose the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And as the time of this recording, Corey, our Coffee with Kenobi family listeners and readers have donated $331.
Yeah, dude, halfway.
Is amazing.
That's crazy.
It's more than halfway. It's phenomenal. It's just so important. It helps for those of you who don't know what Make-A-Wish is. It's basically, they've been around since 1980. They've been helping children with life-threatening medical conditions through wish-granting work. And it's just an amazing, wonderful thing. And it's not a cheap thing to do. And this is why we picked this charity. And the current thing now is the first 4 people to raise $500. If you support this, you can win a Sphero BB-8 autographed by J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy. And the big prize, the top fundraiser for this week, gets a chance to win a tour of Lucasfilm in San Francisco. And when you're on this tour, you get to screen any Star Wars movie of your choice while you're there. And having been in that theater and hearing the acoustics, not to mention the fact that you get to go to Lucasfilm.
Right,
that
exactly.
Is an incredible, incredible thing.
Dan, what film would you pick if it was you?
I don't know. I think that's a hard one. It would probably be Empire, Revenge of the Sith, or The Force Awakens.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Maybe it should be A New Hope, because that is...
Well, that's what I was thinking, too. New Hope is kind of like the classic, like, starting everything. Like, that would just be a memory that you would just never forget. But then again, so would any film, I guess. I don't know. I'm torn. I'm torn between A New Hope and Force Awakens because I don't know, I love both those films.
They're great, and this whole thing is just great. The first week, the prize was you could win an autographed copy of The Force Awakens signed by the entire cast, which was amazing.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's good. That's so cool.
And the second week, you can win an autographed Stormtrooper helmet from the cast of Rogue One. And now we've got the Science Sphere BB-8 by Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams, not to mention the opportunity to win going to Lucasfilm. Now, the grand prize for the entire thing is you win a trip to Ireland, to Skellig Island, which is, of course, the end of The Force Awakens with Luke and Rey. It's an amazing thing. We've raised a lot of money for this, and we've mentioned this on our post, and we mentioned this on Twitter, but it has to be mentioned. And we've mentioned this on our post, but it's worth mentioning again. No one at Coffee with Kenobi is making a cent off of this. 1,000% of it goes to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. If you contributed to this, you're the one who's eligible for the prize. It doesn't come to us. The only way it comes to us is if we donate. So basically, you're doing a great thing for a lot of kids who need this help, and the way it uplifts their family. And one of the things, when people donate, sometimes they send messages to us. Mm-hmm. And some of these stories that they write are so moving and so beautiful. This is the most important thing we've ever talked about on our show in 3 years. And I hope that we continue to meet that goal of 500 and beyond, because it's a great blessing for families who really need it.
Well, I was going to say, too, I feel blessed to be able to broadcast this signal in a sense.
It's true.
And get the message out there for folks who want to get involved and help raise money for Make-A-Wish and help the kids and the families out there that are struggling with, multiple different things, as far as medical wise and trying to live out their lives, too. So if you can contribute, please click the link in the show notes, and we'd love to hear from you. For our next news story, it kind of has to do with kind of a funny situation that Dan had kind of interacted online with our good friend Matt Martin. Matt Martin put out, he's looking forward to looking at the Clone Wars, refreshing a little bit, looking at them chronologically in order. And Dan kind of tweeted back saying, hey, I'd like to watch this again too and break it down. So Dan, you've undertaken this for the first few episodes, and we kind of spoke about this a little bit in previous episode. Of your breakdown kind of synced up right with our Brews and Blasters discussion. But tell us a little more how this kind of came to be, and I'm more excited to understand why in the right mind would you want to do something like this? Go ahead, just throw it out there.
I'm going to introduce a new word for some people. This is a Sisyphean task.
Sisyphus is this a new Coffee with Kenobi word?
It is.
We put this in our library.
Sisyphus is from mythology. He is a character that is rolling a boulder up a hill for eternity, and that's pretty much what this is. And I grant you, it is a daunting task, but it's fun. I mean, I explain this on Brews and Blasters, and please, it'll be in the show notes too. But please listen to us on Brews and Blasters. I mean, it was incredible fun to be on that show and have a Star Wars conversation. It was much more casual, but no less poignant. So we appreciate the guys from Retro Zapped having us on because it was tremendous fun. So we talked about that there, but as Matt was talking about, as you said on Twitter, re-looking at these, I know the films well, as do all of our listeners, but I know the Clone Wars. I've seen them all at least once, some more than that. But I wanted to be versatile in a way that I could converse and think about the planets and the characters in such a way that I can remember what episodes they're on. In other words, I've lost my mind because it's a daunting task. There's a lot to it, but it's so much fun. So at the time of this recording, I have gotten through the first 3 chronological, as you mentioned, based on what Leland Shee distributed. And the third one is the film, which is actually 4 episodes in one. So I've been through 6 so far. I've basically released one every 2 weeks. And what I look at is I break down.
All I see, Dan, is 115 left.
Oh.
Quick math there,
Yeah, I think your math might be skewed. Basically, I look at where the show is. I look at the new characters and planets introduced. I summarize the episode and make a little commentary on it. It's not really a review because some of these are very old, not very old, but they're about 8-9 years old. So a review at this point is sort of fruitless, but looking at it through a critical lens is what I was interested in. Then I like to look at what the episode means for Star Wars and sort of how it adds to the canvas. And then I picked the fortune cookies at the beginning, which is a great opportunity to look at the themes present in the episode. And I've had a blast. I mean, it's fun to rewatch these again. And when you look at them in chronological order, because the series was done from a mythological storytelling perspective, and that it kind of jumped around a lot. But when you look at it chronologically, things that you didn't realize were connected just seem to jump out at you, and it's tremendous fun.
Well, I guess I'll ask too. It's you look at it with a critical lens, and I've read a couple of them so far, and they're great, by the way.
Thank you.
Kudos to you, because I guess it's a daunting task, like we've said, but also it's coming out with a critical lens. How much more critical can you get? I guess because you're getting into the chronological order versus the episodic order. How critical? I mean, because it's told such mythological. I mean, I can't say that. Goodness. So is it told because it's told that way? Does it make it easier to kind of criticize and kind of analyze and look at
criticism
like that?
Here is not as a movie critic. It's more like an analytical critique. If I was writing an academic paper,
sure.
All of this is just like we do our show, and just like I do my column for StarWars.com studying Skywalkers. Basically, I wanted to look at these episodes as I would a blog. And since we've had this amazing vehicle, and we are so blessed to have these amazing bloggers in our Coffee with Kenobi family, and they inspired me, honestly.
That's cool.
Their writing, as well as Matt's decision to rewatch them, and he's in the story group, so he's definitely got more of a vested interest in it than I do. But everyone in our family, all our great bloggers, have inspired me, and I thought, why aren't I writing blogs for Coffee with Kenobi? Because I needed to find the right angle, because everybody has such great views and themes to their blogs already. And this just seemed like a fresh way to revisit something and sort of put a new spin on it. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And as you talk about that, it inspires me to want to do something more too. Is just as a passion project type thing too. It's interesting to look at Star Wars a certain way and how folks celebrate it, and go back to their certain parts and analyze things and get into the nitty gritty, I guess, of their favorite parts as we kind of wait for new aspects of Rebels to come back or new films to come out, and to kind of get back into that. But it's kind of our waiting period to be able to explore aspects of Star Wars and in the way we like to do it.
I appreciate everyone's support so far. It's been really great, and we've gotten a lot of nice feedback, and so thank you. And I hope you'll join me as we continue to look at the Clone Wars Coffee with Kenobi style.
Well, hello again, my Coffee with Kenobi friends. This is Nick Deco, your spiritual guide to the world of Star Wars video games, with your monthly update on all things Star Wars in the video game world for April 2016. For those of you that might be following me on Twitter, you probably know that earlier this month, my wife and I welcomed our two newest members of the crew to our family here at the Deco household, Lucas and Benjamin. Side note, I also have probably the best wife in the galaxy, letting me name two twin boys those names. That being said, I have spent many restless, sleepless nights not playing video games for the last few weeks, but kind of just doing internet research to figure out what should I get excited about when I have free time to play these games again, besides what I already currently play. So this month, I just wanted to spend a short amount of time while I had 5 minutes in between feedings and sleeping for all the kids, just to give you guys what I'm excited about for the rest of 2016. Now, the year is very young. It's only April, so we have 8 months to go. There's a lot of great things currently on the market, which I will definitely get into in months from here on out. But I wanted just to let you guys know what I've been looking forward to while sitting at my couch at 3 o'clock in the morning, hoping my kids go to sleep. So first is Lego The Force Awakens. If you haven't seen the awesome trailers for this yet, go do yourself a favor and Google it. Definitely a classic Lego infused game with comedy and just different characters, and really making a good game. At the same time, having a lot of fun with the characters in the Star Wars universe. It comes out June 28th, so in a couple of months. And it's going to be on all devices. If you've played a Lego game before, you know it's a solid game. It's a great family game. It's multiplayer. It's single player. It's campaign based. You can have an open world and play with different characters for different items. I played the complete saga back on, I think, the Xbox 360, and it was okay. I enjoyed it. I found the characters to be really repetitive. I kind of anticipate the same in the next game for The Force Awakens compared to, let's say, Marvel Superheroes, which I also played, and that was a little more in depth because you have such a wide swath of characters in the Marvel Universe. So, but that being said, I think it's going to be a fun game. And really, unfortunately, we won't have a complete trilogy for the new trilogy until like 2021. So we're going to have to buy these by piecemeal. Every year it comes out, right? So look forward to that. I think I would definitely purchase it for a console, as I can anticipate it taking up a lot of space on your mobile phone, unless you are like probably a regular person and have more than 10 gigabytes on your cell phone, unlike myself. But also I would say probably expect a Rogue One version of this, of a Lego game, later in the year. Lego and Star Wars, they churn these games out all the time. Not saying that's a bad thing, but they definitely have a good system down pat. So I think they can churn one out pretty quickly for Rogue One if they wanted to. So probably expect that around the same time the movie comes out later this year. But that's just my take on it. I would definitely put money on it, though, however, if I was a gambling man at the Sabic table. Next, I want to talk about something that Dan and Corey talked about last month, which is Disney Infinity. Fantastic game. I played that myself. I'll cover it later this year, how I think it's worth your time. But currently, there is no new expansion plans for Disney Infinity for the Star Wars universe. There's different Disney characters being added this year. However, thanks to the popularity, I think, of Star Wars, once again, we've seen it everywhere, and with Rogue One having broken the charts with the trailer, earlier this month or in March. I forget what month it is now. I would definitely expect some characters for that game coming out later this year. Again, if I was sitting at the Sabic table and placing a bet, definitely would say they're going to have some new characters. Maybe not new missions and versions, but I would see them adding some updates to the current console games to include those Rogue One characters to make it really enticing for folks to come back and play, because by that time, The Force Awakens will be a year old. And so do you want to have people come back and play, get excited, and buy more characters and toys? What better way to do that than incorporate the newest Star Wars movie, Rogue One? So anticipate that coming out probably later this year. Currently, right now, last week, they also released the Kylo Ren FX version of their Disney Infinity characters. So the FX version is the characters that have lightsabers that light up when you put it on the base. There's a few right now: Vader, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Kanan from Rebels, but they just released a Kylo Ren. Came out last week. Looks really sweet when it's lit up from what I've seen online. Then again, haven't had a chance to actually play any of my Disney Infinity for a while, so I anticipate it definitely flying off the shelves. So if you see it, I would pick it up if I were you. Definitely be a hot commodity. I would say probably just as hot as Boba Fett is, because Boba Fett is basically impossible to find unless you want to shell out like $100 on eBay, which I wouldn't advise to do, but you can if you like. So talked about Infinity, talked about the Lego game coming out in June, and briefly wanted just to talk about a few of the never dead rumors that Star Wars fans, as we so much love to talk about. One is the potential to see the 2005 Republic Commando shooter-based game, first-person shooter, come back out in terms of Imperial Commando. There's been rumors around that. I've heard things and I've read things in different blog posts about it coming out in 2017. This would have then Star Wars 2 shooters, one kind of really first-person, one third-person with Battlefront. It could happen. It definitely could happen. But I'll right now put that at 50-50. Probably seeing as how Star Wars will come from here to the rest of the year, seeing how much it can the groundswell of fandom and popularity comes back out. Maybe we do see the sequel to Republic Commando come out in 2017 after Rogue One. But don't really know. The game was really popular when it came out because you didn't have a lot of these really in-depth expanded universe kind of games for Star Wars. Currently letting people play and be a part of this of the story, and that's what enticed all of us to play these expanded universe stories. That being said, we don't know what Imperial Commando would look like. You don't know if it would go back, kind of like Rogue One, would it be tied into it, expanding the canon of the story. It'd be hard not to. So potentially looking at it from that lens, whatever Rogue One's being planned for would have to play into Imperial Commando if the storylines are going to be along the same lines. If it's going to be in the original trilogy or before it, they're going to want to take the time to make it right and have it in canon because, as we all know, Disney's not going to make anything that is expanded universe anymore, right? Or Legends, quote unquote. It's really going to be focused on what's going to be canon, especially in these big markets that they're looking to exploit, like video games. And finally, last thing I want to talk about is this never did rumor of this open world RPG for Star Wars. This goes back 4 years now or so. And currently it's kind of reiterated itself around a Han Solo based RPG. But unfortunately, nobody's been able to commit to saying, yes, we're going to do this. And seeing as EA has some of the licensing to these console games and having been at the table majority for Disney, both in the mobile apps and the current large console ones, around an idea of an RPG, and probably the only team that might be able to pull it off. I really don't see that happening anytime soon. The appetite for a very large world RPG is kind of is very nuanced, and I think from looking at what Disney has done, they're trying to bring in a whole new fandom, right? We're trying to bring in people that typically haven't been a part of the Star Wars universe that had the time to play these really in-depth games, such as Knights of the Republic. Also fantastic game for the mobile device. But maybe it happens. Maybe as we start getting closer to Episode 8, we really have built this brand new fandom in the Star Wars universe. We really start seeing this groundswell of support for investing people in an RPG that takes up the whole Star Wars universe, right? So we're talking about planets we've never heard of before. We're talking about planets we know about, characters, missions, different types of alien species, current species that we know about, Jedi, maybe some parts of, you could be a Sith, things like that, things that we're used to playing in the other kind of games that we've played in the past with role-playing, but larger, right? And not just a finite kind of path, but an open universe. Though I would say temper expectations. Who knew that they were going to make 3 new Star Wars movies, right? Who knew that 7, 8, 9 were actually going to happen in our lifetime? So that being said, it's still there's a reason why it's never dead. People want to see it happen. There might be a groundswell of support, and so we could look for that. I would say no earlier than 2018 for sure, as there's lots of other things on the plate for Star Wars video games. So that is my quick update for you all for the month of April. Thanks for hanging in there and giving your feedback on this part of the podcast. If you have anything else you want to let me know about, the games you're playing, the things you love to do in the different games, whether it's a mobile game, but it's PlayStation, it's PC, find me on Twitter at NickDico, DICO. Anytime, always there, especially at 4 o'clock in the morning nowadays. So look forward to your comments and your feedback. And I turn it back to the guys. May the Force be with you.
Han Solo, Rebel Soldier, Lando Calrissian, and Bespin Guard, each sold separately. From Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back Collection, new from Kenner.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say,
Your lightsabers will make a fine addition to my collection.
Joining us today in our collector news segment is someone who knows a thing or two about collecting. President and CEO of Rancho Obi-Wan, Steve Sansweet.
Hi, Dan and Corey. How are you?
We are great and so happy you're returning to share the latest about Rancho Obi-Wan, The Force Awakens, and Rogue One. Welcome back, Steve. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
And it's always a pleasure to speak with you guys, too, especially since, I didn't get to speak with both of you last time.
That's right. Now the whole gang's back together. The cool. Band, we're getting the band back together. There's a Chicago
yeah,
thing.
Right.
We're Chicago guys.
Yeah. God. Of course, those bands have maybe one, maybe none of the originals.
It's true.
So,
before we break in, and actually, this is an interesting thing, and you're probably going to amuse you, but I would say 2 weeks ago, I was in the grocery store, and I saw Star Wars apples, and I laughed because of our last conversation, and I thought, now, does Steve buy these? And if so, how in the heck does he keep them without having a bunch of fleas and bugs into Rancho Obi-Wan? What do you do with something like that?
There's all kinds of things you do with food, something like that, and the BB-8 orange bag, and that kind of stuff. You eat the apples, you eat the oranges, and you have the wrapper, and a lot of this stuff. I mean, like yogurt and things like that. You try to keep the container, even the soup cans eventually. Have the possibility of popping. Imagine my horror one day a couple of years ago when I went through the shelves and saw that my 1999 UK Heinz Star Wars pasta bits with Jar Jar had exploded
oh boy,
and completely ruined the silver lenticular label. I was just,
I wouldn't like that either.
Heartbroken. So yeah, so I open cans like that because you never know. Obviously, soda you open because the cans don't are eventually going to leak. So some stuff is just not worth it. Some stuff you just let age, and some things surprisingly don't age. I'm still very proud of my 15-year-old Canadian Jar Jar Binks chocolate Easter bunny. Came out in 2000.
Wow.
It's so scary that the bugs haven't even attacked it. and it obviously has so much preservatives that it isn't blemished at all.
He hasn't melted. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a way to sell to my wife why I have yogurt and apples in the attic. She's gonna try to check me into the loony bin. But I'm going to say, you know what? It's going to keep. It's going to be okay.
Wait a second. You don't have it with the actual yogurt in it, do you?
No. This, I know.
Well, you saw the Kraft TV commercial that we took part in. We lent them 750 pieces and went down to L.A., set up the collector's room.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the 1 minute version is basically Dad is showing his 7-year-old son the collector's room for the first time, and this is just amazing stuff. And he goes to touch like a 1978 very collectible R2D2 from Italy, and Dad says, No, you can't open that. And then he goes over to the shelf and he sees these new Kraft mac and cheese boxes, and he picks one of those up and no. And the kid says, toys you can't open, food you can't eat. This is a room of lies.
That was like a window into my soul.
And I wonder how many of our friends and spouses and children have thought the same thing.
Oh my, that resonated. That was an excellent.
It was wonderful.
It was great. It was hilarious too.
Well, we'll go ahead and move ahead here a little bit and kind of speak about The Force Awakens. And we've heard you speak on our podcast, but we're going to like to hear from our point of view, come out kind of a little bit for the film itself. So, Steve, what was your experience like for Force Awakens for the very first time, and what do you think of how the film adds to the overall Star Wars canvas?
Well, the very first time was not the best experience. I mean, it was on the one hand, and it was not as far as the movie was concerned. Because we were down in Los Angeles doing an event for Target the weekend before, we got invited to sit in the bleachers on the red carpet. It was, I think, a record low temperature for Los Angeles that evening, but it was very, very exciting. And then we got to go in and see the premiere, and we went into the Dolby Theater, and that was the place to be because that's where JJ and the actors and Bob Iger and George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, and George got a standing ovation, and JJ introduced everybody, including the cleaning crew. And it was, I mean, almost literally, but it was great, and a lot of enthusiasm. However, my seat was the Dolby, of course, is the Academy Award Theater. It is not really built, even though they have the Dolby Atmos sound and everything. It's not really built as a day-to-day movie theater. And so sitting on the third row in the front on the right-hand side, I had difficulty with the sound, especially with Kylo Ren in the mask. Oh. And I couldn't make out half the things he was saying until the mask came off. And then, but I loved the experience. And we were all thrilled. Then I saw it Thursday night in Petaluma at the 7 p.m. show, and it was love times 2. Because then I first of all, you're so I mean, you're trying to take in every last thing, and the fast camera sweeps in Maz Kanata's place, and I mean, what? Come back! I want to see that again, and so it was the second time for me was better as far as seeing the movie. And the first two times I saw it in 2D, and the third time was 3D, and that was exciting. And one of those 4D seats that, when hyperspace comes, the bottom of the seat moves up, and you're feeling all the rocking and everything else. And I think that the movie is exactly what it needed to be. I'm not blind to the critiques that I've seen online about people. Well, we know Star Wars fans, especially anonymous ones, always complain about something. It's part of the nature of being a Star Wars fan, and that's fine. We are a wide open community. We do not agree on everything, and that's part of what makes being a Star Wars fan fun. You can sort of have disagreements with your friends about things. I loved the movie, and I thought the fact that it harked back in many ways to the original Star Wars trilogy was a good thing, because we're introducing an entire new generation to Star Wars, and we have the older generation that has that wonderful nostalgia. Nothing will ever be able to repeat seeing something for the first time. This is not Star Wars, but it is Episode 7, and seeing that for the first time. I mean, I was on a cloud, all the times that I saw it. I have both the digital download and the Blu-ray, and I must admit things have been so busy that I haven't had a chance to watch them yet, but I certainly will soon, and many times.
Absolutely. And I think you were going to be blown away by the quality of the Blu-ray as far as the video particularly. It's so pristine, Steve. It looks like Pixar, but it's live action. It's really something to behold. Wow. I'm looking forward to that. I just saw what I was going to say, some strange movie, Jungle Book.
Oh yeah.
And talk about the quality of the projection and the movie. It's I can't speak too highly about that movie. If you loved Episode 7 in a totally different way, you will love Jungle Book. It is truly a marvel to behold, and a wonderful story, and beautifully carried out and directed by Jon Favreau. That's great to hear. That's great. I know a lot of people are really talking about this film because it seems pretty spectacular. And there's a lot of spectacular things going on in the world of cinema. And recently, we were all treated to the Rogue One teaser trailer, which sort of came out of nowhere. It was very welcome indeed. And I would love to know your impressions of that trailer. I want to know what's gone on. I'm still sort of confused. But you know what? They did such a wonderful job in teasing us. And of course, I no longer work for Lucasfilm. I, occasionally do some freelance, but so I knew nothing about Episode 7. I didn't know when the trailers were coming out. And, seeing the trailers for The Force Awakens, even some of the stuff that never made it into the final movie, was very exciting. And I think they knew what fans were going to get excited about. I mean, of course, the very first teaser trailer couldn't have ended in a more spectacular way with Han Solo coming out. But I think all of the trailers were exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of Rogue One, and also seeing how I feel about it, as this is a movie that we know where it fits in the history, but it's not part of the Skywalker saga. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really curious as to how I'm going to react to the final movie. I'm sure I'm going to be very excited about it, but this is a bold experiment on the part of Disney, and we know there are 2 more coming after that, and so and we have episode 8 to look forward to, and 9. So it's going to be a great experience, and I think they've started it very, very well.
When we talked about this last week, Corey and I was telling him that to me it felt like this is sort of how I pictured Star Wars was going to go if it wasn't sold to Disney and eventually someone else took a shot at making a Star Wars film, because it's very refreshing and different in a way that I think we didn't know that we were looking for, if that makes sense.
Well, it is. And whereas The Force Awakens was more like the original trilogy, but very much with J.J. Abrams' touch all over it, this seems like a different kind of movie. And so that's why I'm excited about it. It's going to add something to the canon and to the world of Star Wars that we've never experienced before, and that's going to continue. And there's so many stories that they could possibly do. There's so much unexplored time and unexplored stories. And how did that happen? Because we just jumped 10 years to that, or we jumped a year, or what happened to. What was that year like between, Han Solo being frozen in carbonite and his final rescue, and what was going on in the Star Wars world, and, what was the journey to find him like? I mean, that's just one story out of hundreds.
Absolutely. And coming up with new kind of experiments, like you said, with this film, there comes along with the merchandising and such. And we kind of broke the news to you a little bit.
Are they doing merchandising for this?
They are. They've decided to do merchandising, yes.
Which makes you happy and makes you think, where am I going to put this stuff?
That's my question is like, since this is a side movie, is this going to be like a side portion of Rancho Rogue One?
I think. Well, no. I think everything fits together in Rancho. The licensed items, the fan made items, the bootleg items, and we've got timelines mixed in, and Rancho is curated to sort of tell a story. And so, there's like, this is the Japanese area, and we've gone from the earliest stuff in 1978 to look what they're doing today. And so for us, it's the best way to tell the story. And we've thought about this long and hard in setting up the museum. Do we do it by movie? Do we do it by era? And just came up with, okay, let's see what feels right. And so, Rogue One would just like The Force Awakens, Rogue One would fit into that area. And you guys just sent me, because I didn't see, because I've been a little busy, the packaging, the first packaging for Rogue One. And who's that guy in the white helmet with the strange nose?
No idea.
It looks like a stormtrooper with a sinus problem.
That's good.
One of those, their version of those little strips that you put on at night so you don't snore. But
that's right.
It's very interesting. Obviously, it's a stormtrooper, but it's a little different. And seeing the AT-ATs there, it's all very Imperial, very war. And that's what the movie's about. I think it gives sort of the right feel. Whereas the packaging for, The Force Awakens was either the black packaging or, largely the heroes or the Photoshop, some parts of the Photoshopped one sheet. This is clearly sending you in the direction of, this is a war movie. And it's going to be different than the other ones.
I agree with that. And here's a funny random story. The one sheet, I'm sure you have yours. I got one at a movie theater. It was on the last day of the run. And I said on a whim, are you selling these posters? He's like, yeah, but this one's really, really popular. It made a lot of money. So we're going to have to charge you $15 for it. I said, okay, here you go.
Oh, you dirty bird.
I know. It's funny. So the packaging for Rogue One is interesting to me too, because it's almost simplistic, even though there's a lot going on. It very much feels like recycled Empire Strikes Back 1980s packaging, don't you think?
In a way, I think, not
in a negative way, just for like,
Yeah. I think a lot of voices and a lot of hands got involved in both the poster and in the packaging. And when you get, I can remember back in the day working at Lucasfilm, and all of the versions of potential packaging that Hasbro would come up with for its next line or its next year, and choices of colors and things like that. And there would be debates, and there would be boards laid out in licensing, and people would go in there, and it's so I can only imagine how much work went into, number one, deciding on the poster, which I think included every character that was on screen, and that was several thousand, to the packaging, which was, okay, what are we trying to get out here? We're trying to say new, but we're also trying to say nostalgia, and that this is a movie you're going to like because it's like the original movies. And I think that in some way led to some of the design decisions on the look of The Force Awakens.
Sure, that makes sense. And it also, it's just it's interesting too, because we went to just an image of Vader or an image of Maul or an image of Kylo Ren, and now we've just got this beautiful cornucopia of all the things that really are so beloved by fans about the Empire in general. You mentioned the AT-ATs, that Stormtrooper looks like the great-great-great-grandmother of Captain Phasma or whatever is going on there. It's pretty fun. Pretty fun. And speaking of fun, we're talking to Steve Sansweet, and obviously you're the president and CEO of Rancho Obi-Wan, and we are excited to hear about the latest and greatest things happening at the ranch.
Well, I just got back from Dallas, and we are very proud to be. There's a fairly new museum in Dallas called the Perot Museum of Nature and Science. Big, beautiful building that was really a combination of three former museums, and the Perot family funded it along with others. The H. Ross Perot, those of you who are old enough might remember that he ran as a presidential candidate.
Oh, yes.
And ran as an independent. The museum's first internal show is called The Eye of the Collector. And they've gotten together 9 different collectors. There's one husband and wife who have the most amazing eclectic collection, Randy and Nancy Best, and they collect everything from fossils and skeletal remains. There's a giant not reanimated, but the way it's put together, cave bear. There's rocks. There's things that they find interesting, and you think, oh well, they can't make up their mind on what they want to collect, but it's just the opposite. They collect out of passion. And so there was so much of that a bunch of us were sharing, and I had a wonderful conversation with Mr. Best, and we talked about and he was looking at the Star Wars stuff, and he was sort of giggling with delight because we've both been collecting for about 40 years, and he remembered so much of the stuff, and he was getting delight out of my collection. And there was somebody who collected the nation's team, the Dallas Cowboys football, and Pez and black dolls and bicycles and duck decoys, but I think the three most exciting were the Best's collection, the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, people are going to be interested in, and there were just a ton of kids there the first day open to members and schools, and I think they liked the Star Wars exhibit.
Rightfully so, right?
Yes.
We had about 75 items that the museum itself picked. They did a video of me, and they cut together a really cool video. And basically, I talked about why I collect, and one of the reasons is it gives me so much pleasure to share what I have. And we did that the weekend before the Force Awakens opens down at LA Live in downtown LA with Target. And that was an exciting event. And there's just lots of other things coming up. And right now we also, the Eye of the Collector, by the way, goes until Labor Day. So if you're in Dallas and you have some time, the museum itself is incredible. And this special exhibit is really very, very cool. We also have set up for a month a window of Star Wars books and all kinds of different books from all kinds of different eras, and little chairs for kids and a chair for an adult and things like that, a little scene setting. And so this specializes in books, and this is at our downtown independent bookstore, Copperfield's, and it is on for a month. And of course, you guys are going to be here this Saturday, right, for the world famous Petaluma Butter and Egg Day Parade.
Oh my goodness, we don't miss
this weekend.
The Coffee with Kenobi jet is fueled up.
I'm not sure whether it's too late to sign up for the cow chip tossing contest or not.
Boy. Oh boy.
Oh yes. And these are all spray painted, so they know who, the mayor and but anybody can enter. And the cutest chick contest, which is, kids under 2, I think, are dressed up as little chicks, and there's an award for that. But it's just delightful. And we, for the last couple of years, have taken our Rebel troop carrier and have done the parade route in it, although last year it sort of broke down towards the end. We just spent several hours and looking at it and found the worst burned out battery I have ever seen in my life. And it's a brand new battery, but we replaced it and it looks like it's going to work. So if not, we're going to be there anyway and marching, because we also want to tell people about our fundraiser. Now, we're doing a May the 4th Be With You fundraiser prequel on May the 3rd, because it turns out that our wonderful local craft brewery, which is now 50% owned by Heineken's in the last couple of months, Lagunitas, lets charities use their outdoor tap room on Mondays and Tuesdays. And obviously they don't serve their beer to kids, but kids are more than welcome. And last year we filled the place with about 300 people, and a lot of kids. So this year we're actually doing a costume contest, and we're going to have food for sale and raffles and door prizes and goodie bags for the kids, and some of the Lucasfilm retailers or licensees have given us some stuff to auction off, including Funko and Santa Cruz skateboards, good old Entertainment Earth, where I've been buying all my Hasbro stuff for the last God only knows how long. our local Brian's Comics, Kotobukiya. So we have a wonderful time there, and it's like a 3-hour event, and we have lots of costume characters and our giant Jabba the Hutt, if I can get inside and take it apart and put it back together without sort of dying. But
always important.
It's a little difficult. And then for the first time, one of all of our good friends, Jimmy Mack of Rebel Force Radio, is going to be here. We're doing a live podcast fundraiser on Friday, April 29th from 6 to 10 p.m. Pacific time. And we're going to be putting out a press release on this, which hopefully should come out before this cast airs. And we're going to have special Star Wars guests. And we already have gotten some RSVPs either on the phone or live from some people at Lucasfilm. Obviously, nobody's going to give away any keys to the kingdom or secrets to Rogue One or Episode 8. But I think we should have a lot of fun. And there's going to be a way to ask questions both in advance and during the podcast. And, we're a nonprofit. This is November will be our 5th anniversary. And what we say, our goal really is to inspire through the Force, inspire people's imagination, kids and adults. And we give lots of free tours. We've tripled the number of tours we give to school kids and affiliate groups. We give lots of regional charities tours to auction off for them to make money. And then we use the money to, pay some bills and preserve the collection. None of the money goes to actually buying things for the collection. That's all on me. But this is our spring fundraiser called Inspiration for Every Generation. So we're trying to step it up. 5 years is a wonderful record. I can't believe it's been 5 years. It's gone by so fast. And of course, I owe it all and so much of it to Ann Newman, who is our general manager and vice president. And without Ann and her organizational abilities, I would be stuck in my office piled high with junk. Well, actually, it is piled high with junk right now, but that's only temporary. I've got to clean it out by the 29th. So, boy, am I glad we are not doing a video Skype right now. So lots of exciting things happening, and it's all going to lead to our big fall 5-year anniversary fundraiser. We have gotten our new kit is almost all together, so we'll be showing the new membership kit online fairly soon. Beautiful new patch using a wonderful illustration of Ben Kenobi from Dan Berggren, the very, very talented artist, and a beautiful 5th anniversary coin that goes along with that. And we still do our, we book our tours. You can go to ranchoobiwan.org. We book our tours out for a couple of months. And it's mainly Fridays and Saturdays and public holidays. And sometimes I do tours for school groups on other days. So we are keeping very, very busy, and it keeps me young, at least mentally. Physically, yes, we all get a little older, but I feel great, and things are going super for us. So we did the first Silicon Valley Comic-Con in San Jose a couple of months ago, and it was put on by Steve Wozniak, is a name from Apple history, and Woz is not only a wonderful tech geek, but he's a pop culture aficionado, And he thought it was time to combine the two things into a convention. And for a first convention, it went amazingly well. In fact, they sold out all of the Saturday tickets. So I'm sure that this is going to continue. A lot of conventions around the country are piling in people, and it's going to be a fun year.
He was also on Dancing with the Stars, I remember, a few seasons ago.
Was he?
He really was.
Wow.
Oh yeah, you'll have to ask him about that.
Oh my goodness!
Twinkle Toes Wozniak, I think they call him.
Well, in fact, they had a small exhibit from Madame Tussauds at the show, and they had Steve Jobs, who looked very lifelike, but Wozniak had this big open hands out, and he was so lifelike that I thought it was a scam, and the show had ended, and I thought, okay, he's waiting to do a gotcha, and I blew in his ear, and he didn't move. I mean, that's how. I mean, I can remember Madame Tussauds 20 years ago, and everything was old and dusty and plastic looking. Oh my goodness, they have. Wow, it was very exciting, and they had Mark Zuckerberg seated without socks. So I guess if you were some sort of nerd, you could tickle his toes, but it was great fun. So we keep having fun here. We keep expanding our audience and letting more and more people know about us and the availability to take a tour and help out by making donations, buying things in our eBay store, and coming to our gala, which is always a huge amount of fun.
Oh, it looks so great. I'm really hoping this is the year the stars align. I'm able to do that because Rancho Obi-Wan is the only thing on my Star Wars bucket list I've not been able to accomplish. And it just seems like such a wonderful event. And hopefully we'll have you on again before that to help promote that, because it really is amazing. Everything that you're doing. I don't know how you have time to sleep.
Yeah, right.
Well, that is a problem, actually.
I'm sure.
I usually don't get to bed until about 3 or 3:30. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, and I get up leisurely. Well, not so leisurely at 10 o'clock, but so I'm much more of a night owl. I get a lot more done, and but as I said, Star Wars is as big, if not bigger, than ever. And I think it's being handled in the right way. I'm very excited as a fan to see what's coming up. I deliberately avoided spoilers for The Force Awakens, so I'm avoiding spoilers, except you just spoiled it for me by showing me the packaging. But other than that, no, I'm avoiding spoilers for Rogue One. I just want to go in there, as George said, and see the movie and just take it on, accept it for what it is, and I think everything is going in the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, we have 3 mantras here on Coffee with Kenobi. 1 is discussion, analysis, and rhetoric. 2 is involving the fans as much as possible, and 3 is no spoilers. We are adamantly no spoilers, so you're definitely in a safe zone when you're enjoying a cup of coffee with us, and we appreciate it so much. And really, you are an inspiration, and I'm not just saying this because we're just fans and excited to be able to have you on, but if there was a Mount Rushmore for Star Wars, you would be one of the 4 faces on it. There's no question in my mind.
That's good.
I don't know that they would have enough stone for my nose.
Well, it's,
but maybe they could do a little nose job. Well, it's not that bad.
It's true. You've done so much for fans and fandom and Star Wars. And I really do love getting my membership kits from Rancho, because it does feel like the Star Wars fan club. And it's just such an important thing to be a part of, to help perpetuate the legacy of Star Wars. And that this is like Rancho Obi-Wan is a living testament to culture, to our culture. So
it is. And we're looking ahead, and we're seeing how we can maintain this for the far, far distant future. We're always changing things here. So if you come here and a year later you come, things are different. If you've looked at our Facebook page, we've changed some things at the front of the museum. We have this amazing action figure tower that Target had built for us for the show that houses 112 carded action figures, the first 112 carded action figures. And the base is made up of acrylic quarters. It's a circle, and there's 575 Stormtrooper action figures in it, and wow. LED lighting. And I'll just tell you, we are so excited. I mean, we've had Vader. Vader is still here. He's just moved over a little to the left, but this is what started collecting. And the heritage and action figures, which made it possible to do ships and playsets and things like that. And now it has the place it deserves at the front of the main part of Rancho Obi-Wan. And it's a real treat for me. I mean, I go in there and plug it in at night and just sort of sit at the top of the stairs and stare at it, because I'm a fanboy. I will always be a fanboy until my dying day, and have been since the first day I saw Star Wars.
It's almost like a Star Wars Christmas tree.
I saw
that. It's true, and I saw that image on the Facebook page.
You have to see it in person. It is truly amazing. It looks fantastic, and we thank the folks at Target have been really great partners for us in the last year and a half, 2 years, and it's been great fun working with them and seeing their creativity inspired from some of our creativity. And I still remember the meeting that we were having, and we were talking about, what kind of stuff we could put in this display. And then I think it was Rich Smolin, who's our director of development, and said, well, why don't we put all of the vintage carded action figures? And I almost had a heart attack. And I thought, what? And then they sort of, started talking about it and doing some kind of really cool display, and I really got into it, and I am so happy that turned out. But you never know, and Star Wars fans sparking the imagination of other Star Wars fans, that's what it's all about.
It is, and I'm the proud owner. I know Corey has it. It already is, but I have the Rancho Obi-Wan coffee mug, and I like the back, powered by, what does it say? Powered by
the force of imagination.
I love that. That's just is that on a T-shirt at Rancho?
Yes.
Oh, great.
I think it is. I think it's on our fifth. We have a new 5th anniversary T-shirt, which we'll be introducing shortly.
Great.
So yeah. And
we'll be
you're going to love the patch and the coin. They're just beautiful.
Cool.
So
I love that there's even a coin. I think that's amazing.
Oh yeah. It's really nice. Really nice.
Well, it's so nice again to have you on. It's always such a treat, and I know our CWK family loves listening to you. So be sure, everyone, if you're not a member of Rancho Obi-Wan, what are you waiting for? This is the time. There's a lot of amazing things going on, and Steve, thank you again. Best of luck to you, and good luck on the fundraisers and the conventions, and we can't wait to see what happens.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Corey. It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys.
Thanks, Steve.
Take care.
Hey, it's Dan Z.
And Corey Clubb
from Coffee with Kenobi, and we are excited to let you know about the Star Wars card trader app from Topps.
Yeah, Dan, you remember those cards that came out in 1977, the good old days? Well, they're back again. Yeah, so it's the Star Wars card trader app. It has them all, as well as fantastic images from the Force Awakens, the Clone Wars, Rebels, and much more.
Absolutely. You've got your favorite characters, memorable scenes, you've got key moments. It's all there. You get credits every day for free from the app, which is available from iTunes or Google Play. Open packs from the cantina, trade with your friends, and enjoy these amazing Star Wars memories as you take your first step into a larger world.
There's so many different sets to choose from also, and there's so many great cards to chase. There's special inserts, there's rewards for completing sets and variants. It's everything you love in collecting from a galaxy far, far away.
The Star Wars digital card trader collecting app from Topps.
These are the cards you're looking for.
This is Connor Daniels, Coffee with Kenobi listener and Patreon contributor, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z and Corey Club. This is the podcast you're looking for.
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
I must be allowed to speak.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
Our topic for show number 53 is The Force Awakens through the eyes of a new generation. The film has introduced Star Wars to a new generation of fans and has had an amazing impact on them. We are honored to discuss this topic with Coffee with Kenobi Patreon contributor Connor Daniels. Connor has provided the questions for this topic, which we are excited to discuss with him. He's making his podcast debut and is a huge Star Wars fan with many great insights into what is important to fans of his generation. Welcome, Connor, to Coffee with Kenobi.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Well, thank you. And as listeners know, of course, we've been talking about our Patreon page for a while, and one of the incentives based on donations is you get to pick the topic for a show, and you get to join us for that topic. And this is how this came to fruition. It really couldn't have worked out more beautifully. You've been very professional in your interactions with us and patient, and we truly appreciate that. The world of podcasting can be
daunting at times.
Yeah, it can be daunting. Yes, there's a lot going on there, but we appreciate that, Connor. And before we get started, we'd like for you to tell us all about yourself and your history as a Star Wars fan.
I think if I remember the story correctly, I was in third grade and I was in Cub Scouts here in the Seattle area. I don't know if you know, but we like to launch these cool rockets for Cub Scouts into, pretty high. And right after one of those, I don't know how the topic got brought up, but we were at like an ice cream shop after that. And my dad said something about Star Wars. And I was like, oh, yeah. And at that time, I believe he hadn't told me about episode 3 yet. He had, showed me 4, 5, 6, 1, and 2. And I was like, let's say, I think I was 8, maybe 9. So, he kind of kept the Revenge of the Sith from me because it was PG-13.
Sure.
And, I was thinking about it, and we were talking, and he's like, oh, yeah. And I was like, oh, is this one called this name? And he went and he looked it up on his phone, and he was looking up all the stuff. And then we went home, and he showed me all the movies again, and that's when I really got hooked. I'd seen them before, I just wasn't, it never really captivated me. So that's how it happened.
Interesting. And then did you become a collector then?
Well, not quite then. I kind of just learned more about the movies. And then after that, I kind of took a short break for a year. And then back in like 4th or early 5th grade, I started, buying all the books. And I bought a bunch of the new and updated Atlas kind of books, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't really read most of them. I'd just look at all the pictures and think that was cool. And I kind of read all that and tried to learn all about that. And then I realized that stuff wasn't canon. So, but then now I've become a collector. I have, a lot of stuff actually behind me in my closet. It started off one shelf of Star Wars stuff. And then it kind of infected the other shelves, and now my whole closet.
That's parenting done right. It's I'm glad that has happened. It's very cool. We can relate.
Yeah, it started off with Lego, I think. Lego Star Wars.
That's great. Now, as you described to us your background and history of becoming a Star Wars fan, how did it feel after seeing Episode 3 and kind of getting hooked and thinking that was maybe the last Star Wars movie? As the saga had unfolded.
All right, so I was born in 2003, so I didn't see Revenge of the Sith in the theaters, but I did see, when my dad showed it to me. I think I was 10, and he kind of like, oh hey, look, there's another Star Wars movie. He's like, oh cool, yeah, I want to see that, and he put it in, and we watched it. Now it's one of my favorites. Then I was kind of scared of it. Because it has some pretty dark parts. But I watched it, and my dad had, like when we were watching it, I would ask like, oh, who's this character, kind of all these different things from the mind of a 10-year-old, I guess. And after that, I kind of was, I'd watch the other movies, but I was like, I had the books, but I wanted another movie. So I got into Clone Wars, and that was kind of the substitute for another movie until, of course, Force Awakens, and that's been really fun. How about you guys?
Yeah, so it's interesting because to think about from your perspective, where Dan had seen movies originally in the theaters, which I didn't get a chance to do it myself, but I was kind of like you, Connor, where I had to kind of view them through a different way of viewing from home and kind of taking that way. And it's interesting because you kind of had a long waiting period as far as Clone Wars and kind of, I guess, maybe a little bit of Rebels kind of coming in there before you saw Episode 7 and kind of rolling into that too. It's interesting that way to see where you kind of started your fandom and how that branched out.
Well, you know what else too? I don't know why I didn't think about this before, but right now the three of us represent three generations
definitely
of fandom, because I'm 10 years older than Corey and I'm 1,000 years older than Connor. So that's kind of cool. That's actually perfect because this topic is all about that. And Corey, I know you saw the originals after their original run, but the prequels, you saw all of those in the theater, correct?
I did, yeah.
How'd you feel when you saw Episode 3? And this is a great question, by the way, Connor. But Corey, how'd you feel? Sure thing.
Yeah, I agree with you, Connor. I mean, to me, it was a darker film. It was a sadder film. I felt like even when I left the theater, I felt it was just a sad kind of ending, Obviously, we all kind of know as Star Wars fans know where it goes and what it's leading into, but it was kind of a sad tale to an unfortunate end and his way of life and what he chose to do. And as fans know, that's the way it's going to go. So it's interesting that way because I always, that scene where Obi-Wan shouts out to Anakin, "You were like a brother to me," and it's just like you can feel his pain. I think the acting is definitely well done in that film. I actually think that there's some raw emotions that are really extremely well done. And I know, Dan, for you, you have a lot of you said that the fact that there was I can't even think of the scene. There was a scene where you wanted them to get an award or something for a certain scene. Am I making that up, or I don't know what I'm thinking about?
Are you talking about Ian McDiarmid?
Maybe, yeah, Ian McDiarmid in that film.
He should have got a supporting actor nomination, I think. To me, for Episode 3.
For the Plagueis scene, right?
Yeah, that's right. Just for everything.
Sure.
He's just amazing in that. But to me, knowing that was the last Star Wars film at the time, I'd had a long time, of course, the 3 years, and of course, I've said many times, I like the anticipation of a moment. But this movie, when I walked in the theater, I told this on another coffee chat, I think with Dennis, but we were lined up around the entire theater, gigantic theater. And when I went in there and the music started, I was so nervous. Like I was watching Michael Jordan in Game 7 of the NBA Finals or something. Although, by the way, he only went to Game 6 every time because he was that awesome. He didn't need to go to Game 7. But I was so worked up and nervous because I don't know what I wanted, but I knew that it was so important. This was the icing on the proverbial Star Wars cake. And then when I went back again later that night, and then the next day, whoever I was with, I was so keyed up that they would experience it the way that I did, because I'm kind of a weirdo that way, I guess. It's like that Star Wars excitement and that angst that we get and I'm sure that everyone listening to this podcast felt the same when they walked into the theater for The Force Awakens. So I was okay with it being the last one at the time, because I think deep down in the recesses of my mind, I knew, because it made so much money and was so beloved, that it was going to come back in some fashion. I didn't know how or when, but I was at peace with how it ended, because I thought it was the perfect ending at that time to what I thought was the final Star Wars film. I mentioned The Force Awakens, and Connor, I wanted to ask you, how did you feel when Star Wars The Force Awakens was announced? But you knew it was going to happen, and you knew there were going to be actually more Star Wars movies.
So when it was announced and the first trailer came out, I believe the short one with where you see Rey on her speeder, and the really short one that came out
on Black Friday.
Yeah, I believe. At that time, now StarWars.com is my homepage, and I check it regularly. But back then, I was kind of more into the Clone Wars and the books. So my dad actually showed me it first, and he showed me the trailer, and he also after that showed me the SNL spoof with all the old that was really good. And he showed me, and I got really excited. And then I asked him when it was coming out, and then he said in a year, or he said more than a year, and I was like, no. As the months went by, I got more and more excited until December 2015, and then I went with my neighbor Bryce, and he had never seen any of the Star Wars movies, so that was his first one. I went with his parents, and then my parents, and then my brother. Except my dad, he had work that day, but he went the next day, and we all saw it. And I just, as the opening title came up, I just kind of looked at Bryce. He was sitting next to me. I was like, oh wow, like Luke Skywalker vanished. I just felt like, wow, we've been waiting for a year for this, and it's finally here. Can't believe it.
What about you? I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say, but it's always fun to hear this kind of story. How did you feel when Force Awakens was announced? Because obviously, when it was announced, it didn't have a title for a long time. It was just Episode 7.
Yeah, for the longest time, it was hard to kind of fathom the idea of another Star Wars film or another Star Wars trilogy, really.
Yeah.
And, that announcement is something kind of a long time coming because a lot of kind of failed projects had kind of come and gone in the Star Wars franchise. And, as fans, we kind of get excited and all of a sudden it falls through and, it doesn't work out. But then this was kind of like, okay, this one's going to stick and they're really looking forward to making this, and Disney's got the reins now. I was excited to have Disney have the reins in effect because they did such a good job with the superhero films and such. We talked like that before, and it was almost like you had to pinch me to wake me up a little bit, right? I mean, it was a moment that, you kind of wake up every day and you kind of realize, oh yeah, there are going to be more Star Wars films. Even going into, this coming year, I keep pinching myself thinking there's going to be another Star Wars film at the end of the year in December. And then, subsequently on into, the distant future of other, other Skywalker films and other branch off films. And it's crazy to me to think about that. And it's thinking that because we've talked before, Dan, it's just this next generation coming up and getting into these films. Like I always think about my kids and how they're going to experience it and how, we did experience it last December and sitting in the film, seeing it multiple times, like you guys said, experiencing with other people too is such a thrill and such an excitement to do that and kind of, just enjoy their reactions and have a good time. Because I think Star Wars itself, throughout the years, however, you kind of have grown up with it or become a fan in it, it's always been that pinnacle in your life to where it's like, I can enjoy this because it brings joy to everybody else.
Well said. And for me, you know how I felt. It was one of my happiest non-family moments of my life because I felt like I had electricity. When you sent me that text that Disney bought it,
that's right.
That would have been enough to make me smile for weeks. But knowing that not only did they have it, but they already had movies planned, it was just a phenomenal electric thing. I've always said that Clone Wars was sort of the shock to the Star Wars system that we needed. But this was something greater than that because the films, I think, more than anything, bring our community together in profound ways. So it was pretty great in knowing that not only was there going to be episode 7, 8, and 9, but they had other films planned as well. Obviously, Rogue One, the Han Solo film, and who knows what is going to happen, but pretty amazing.
Yeah, speaking of Rogue One, what a great trailer. Wow.
It was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, not to derail us, but
No, go ahead.
I was just so excited to see her, and apparently she has a wardrobe of, just that same
that
shirt.
White dress, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Same with the crew of the Rebels, too. They only have one outfit, but that's okay. So does Charlie Brown. He's cool.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good grief. Yeah, I
Mickey
agree.
Mouse.
Tell us more kind of what you thought about Rogue One as far as the atmosphere and the feel of the film compared to the other Star Wars movies.
All right. So when I first saw that trailer, I watched it multiple times, and what caught me off guard, what was really amazing was the alarm. I know it's maybe kind of silly, but that alarm is now my ringtone.
That is so cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that, and I believe, is that the same alarm when the Death Star is in range?
Yep,
it is.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. And yeah, hearing the music also, at the end of the trailer was that was really good.
It really was, and you make up some good points, because I think the alarm for me was a big selling point for me. It really brought me back into those earlier films. It kind of gives that persona of the dirtiness, the kind of the rushed feel, the enticement of there's action going on, but there's also danger, and there's kind of really a lot of things going on at once, and that's what seemed to come through in episode 4. It kind of felt like that the rebels were kind of figuring out what's going on and kind of get things together to make their move. So I think a lot of that feeling is coming back, a lot of that emotion is coming back into these rebel characters, and the Empire having been so powerful at that time too. It's you can definitely see that in this film as well.
Yeah, I really agree with you. I think this is going to be a really good cast of people playing these roles. I really liked also the walkers. Just they looked amazing at the end of the trailer. Yeah, the ATs.
Absolutely.
So, kind of tying back into what we're talking about here, is we talk about episode 3, kind of an end of the film itself, or I guess the prequels itself. Kind of comparing that to how episode 7 was. How would you guys see? And Connor, we'll start with you, I guess. How did you feel seeing episode 3 and episode 7, as far as maybe walking out of those films, some of your first thoughts, and maybe even going into those films, the anticipation feeling, and then coming out of them, and how those kind of contrast and compare?
I believe this is interesting, because I watched Revenge of the Sith, kind of waiting. I had the 10 o'clock showing for the Force Awakens, and I was kind of after dinner, just kind of waiting, felt like forever. So I put on Revenge of the Sith and kind of watched that through, and then I watched the Force Awakens. Yeah, you could just kind of see some of the similarities, especially the Force Awakens kind of is more like the original trilogy than any of the prequels. But I think the prequels, Revenge of the Sith is more like the original trilogy, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
of
it does.
All the prequels. Like, it has some, tiebacks. Obviously, it's the closest to episode 4. But what was really cool was that some of the characters from, I know this is kind of simple, but even Yoda in the flashback, and Ben, how I see Yoda, or especially actually more like, this is not how I see Yoda, but more how I see Obi-Wan Kenobi is just from episode 3. For some reason, that's just, if I picture Obi-Wan Kenobi, I see him for episode 3. So when you hear him in the Force vision, you could see him in episode 3. No, you could see Ian McGregor. I guess he did say this, but I could see him saying that sometime to Luke or Anakin or somebody like that.
That's fascinating to me too, because when I think of Obi-Wan, I think of Alec Guinness. Not because it's necessarily my favorite portrayal of the character, because I think James Arnold Taylor is, but that's just the one that I first really experienced in theaters. So it's pretty neat to hear your perspective about that. Corey, what about you seeing episode 3 versus episode 7?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, at the time the prequels were coming out, they were really getting too much great press. The fans weren't really necessarily all that, into them, I guess, at the time.
Speak for yourself.
Maybe it's just me.
It's more the general populace as far as.
Well, yeah.
It was more divisive, movement. I think, amongst those fans, but it still made a boatload of cash.
Well, it did too, but also carried a wonderful story of friendship and honor and love and compassion and hate and all those wonderful themes that go through Star Wars in itself, and we see it so many times through the original trilogy. Going into episode 3, it was, like you said, you guys, it was like, kind of an end of an era. We kind of knew it was kind of wrapping things up, leading us into the next films. So you kind of went in on a downer. But, coming into episode 7, I felt like, man, this is a whole new, fresh clean page. We can, kind of see what's going on, what has been going on ever since Return of the Jedi, so, and it's, and the thing about the technology too, the way we intake information, Connor, you said you have StarWars.com as your homepage. Every time you log in, you're constantly, being fed information and what's coming out or what's going on in the Star Wars world.
Good bloggers on StarWars.com.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, it's interesting because, not necessarily that was the case when, Revenge of the Sith came out too. We weren't necessarily always on our smartphones, and technology is always kind of advanced. And we've always kind of been in the moment where with Episode 7, it was constantly, kind of reading up on, press releases and casting and locations and possible things going on in the film. And it just was a different feeling. So it's, for me, I guess maybe it is true to the fact that, it's kind of a downer going into Episode 3, kind of because it was a downswing and leaving us, with, we don't know what the future holds. Where Episode 7 is kind of like, okay, it can go anywhere now. We have no idea what's going to happen in Episode 8. And, it's I don't know, it's fun to react because I think I've matured myself, as a film connoisseur, I guess. I don't know if you call it that. Blah. But, I look at film differently because I'm older and I've seen a lot of different films, so I can compare it to different things I've seen. And as, I raise my children, I guess, too. I think about their reactions and how they'll like it, too. So it gets me excited to see other things, other films, Marvel films and DC films and things like that. It gets them excited to know that they can feel enjoyment out of that as well. So, it's just multiple different things. It's pretty interesting.
I'd say you're a film connoisseur. You're a co-host of a Star Wars podcast.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
I think that counts. So did you mention how you saw Episode 7 for the first time?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I were you there?
I think I was.
Okay, yeah, okay, great. Episode 7 was like it seems like when we talk to people and ask them about their first viewing of Episode 7, it feels like they always feel like they're kind of like, I was so like nervous and wrapped up in the moment and didn't know what to do. And that's exactly how I kind of felt. I felt like, we were trying to record live from the movie theater there, and the 501st were there, and there was lines, and there were friends there. There was just like it was crazy at that time. And I know we had some technical difficulties at that moment, and it's just trying to run, a podcast live, which you don't do all the time, but trying to get that set up, and the wonderful folks, the movie theater helping us out, getting tables set up and things like that. And then going into the film, I know I told you this, Dan. I was like, I kept saying, we're going to get seats, right? We're going to get seats. And I was so nervous we weren't going to get like decent seats that are adequate seats to see, everything. And then again, I think that build up, the apprehension of what's going to happen in this film. We know we've seen the trailers and such, and not sure what's going to go on. And it's crazy. And then here I am. I finally get my popcorn, finally get my drink, and I'm sitting in the seat, and that nervousness, those goosebumps start rising up. I look down, and there's Dan. He's on the local news, talking to news folks about Episode 7 and going on and on. And I'm just
Aren't you surprised? I'm usually so reserved.
Usually you're sheltered and zipped up in your hoodie and yes, but no, it was a moment. I remember seeing you doing that, going, "Yep, that's him, and this is me." I think I handcuffed myself to my chair. It just I wouldn't move. But and that's the other thing too, is getting into the film. It was such a rush of emotion, and I've said that before. Coming home afterwards, I felt a little bit like sick in the way I think was swept up into the film itself. It was such a big undertaking, but having seen it, a second time and a third time also, I've just enjoyed it every time. It's just gotten better and better with more viewings.
Wow. Well, my first viewing of Episode 3, I sort of hinted to before, but saw it on midnight, the first showing with a bunch of friends from a church group that I was helping to run, the youth group for that, and my brother, of course, and friends of mine. And as I said, I was so nervous and excited, and it blew me away. Everything was riveting to me. There wasn't anything that disappointed me. Although I do remember the very quick balcony scene at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, the awkward editing and dialogue in that scene. I thought, oh, yeah, that's going to be awkward. And Vader's no at the end. While I appreciated the power and the magnitude of that, I thought, oh no, people are going to make fun of this. And unfortunately, that is the case. Connor, how do you feel about that? No.
That's, that's not my favorite part of Revenge of the Sith. My friend showed me this website where there's a button and you push it and it says no.
That's great.
And I like to use that sometimes when I'm upset or just, whatever. Probably at some times when I shouldn't. But yeah, I don't think that was my favorite scene.
How would you guys?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You would.
All right. I was just wondering, what are you guys' favorite scene from Revenge of the Sith?
Ooh. That's a good question. I mean, there are a number of them I could point to. I think the opera scene where he tells Anakin about not from a Jedi, about Darth Plagueis the Wise. That is pretty remarkable. But honestly, the opening crawl that goes into the Star Wars heroes theme, but it's more bombastic and deep and ominous in tone, and seeing the Jedi starfighters winging in and out of the Republic cruisers. That is a breathtaking scene that if you've ever been on Star Tours and gotten to see that option, that is an amazing, powerful moment. What about you, Corey?
Yeah, I guess for me, I think back to lightsaber battles and that between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and that jarring emotion was pretty unsettling. But I mean, you could feel it to the screen, I guess. And having seen these characters kind of grow up and through the prequels, I mean, I don't know if it was my favorite scene, but it was just the one that I guess hit me the most. And I did like the fact that they were both very adequate Jedi Knights, and obviously were very skilled. Adequate. I meant skillful Jedi Knights. I mean, they're top of their game, really, as far as and then, but of course, they're brothers. I mean, it's crazy to think about that. I mean, as many as folks and friends that I have, I would never want to, go up against them in anything. Obviously, it would rip your heart out, and you'd feel awful. But it's interesting too. I do like the scene of Obi-Wan and Grievous, their little battle scene in the hangar there, and the little quirks Ewan Gregor gives, and it's I don't know. It's just it's a darker
Grievous.
film. Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I do. I like him. He's cool.
Yeah.
What about you?
He's a really good character.
He is.
Grievous, yeah.
What's your favorite moment in Episode 3, Connor?
This is all right. I believe that my favorite. I've always liked the clones, so this is kind of a longer scene. But when Obi-Wan Kenobi is on Utapau, and just kind of him landing, talking to the guy who slept on a corduroy pillow, and I forget his name, but just for people who didn't get the joke, it's the Utapauan guy who has lines on his face.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Let's see, I'll look it up while you're talking. Go ahead.
All right, cool. Just that whole one where he fights General Grievous. He's hello there kind of thing when he lands down, and then the clones all come, and just that whole Utapau kind of scene there is just. I think that was just amazing. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, well, it's a very good part. I mean, it's a very powerful one. Order 66, I think, guys, is even more powerful. I mean, it's insanely powerful at the time. We're really without much context, to be honest. But then after the Clone Wars, then if you watch it after you've seen all the Clone Wars episodes, then it hits you like a brick.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because when I think about Revenge of the Sith, and maybe I'm ranking it kind of at the lower end of my favorite Star Wars films, and I guess it's not one that I don't necessarily go back to and think, oh, I'm just going to pick it up and watch it type thing. And it's, as I think about it too, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just a sad film for me. I just feel sad when I think about it.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
It's Tion Medon, by the way, the character.
Oh, yeah.
About.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I thought it was, but I wanted to make sure I had the spelling and pronunciation right.
Okay.
The first seeing episode 7, Corey already talked about it, and it was very cool. It's fun to hear things through your eyes, but for me, I don't know if I told this on the show or not, but the whole day was just a blur. I was very excited. I was very nervous, and I read too much social media before I went and saw the movie. But on the way there, I knew I had to eat, and McDonald's didn't sound good. I said, "Oh man, it's gonna mess with me. I don't want to eat McDonald's right now." And nothing bothers me when I eat, but I was so excited, and excited is a better word than nervous, I think, because it's not like I had to perform in the film. That was already
that would be awesome.
That would be awesome. So on the way there, my son and I, my oldest son, we stopped at Chick-fil-A, and we just wolfed down the food as we were driving, and I kept telling Peyton how important this movie was to me and what it meant to me culturally, and from a little kid on the way to being an adult, and then getting there and setting up, and Caleb and Tom, and Tom was there. It was Caleb and you and I, and we were all getting things rolling and set up, and my brother showed up, and like you said, the technical difficulties. The broadcast was fine. It was just getting things set up and getting cables from the theater manager, and who was awesome and very helpful, but there was a lot going on. I mean, that was the most busy I've ever seen a movie theater, ever.
Yeah, me too.
We've been to a lot of big films, and it was just breathtaking. And then when the film started, and remember the 501st.
I was going to say the 501st just kept walking by our table all the time and talking to us and such, and
then they performed in the theater too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
like a faux lightsaber duel, and the actor.
That sounds awesome.
It was very cool. You would have loved it, Connor. And there was an actor who looked just like Obi-Wan from the prequels. He was giving trivia to everybody, and he was talking about Harrison Ford's accident with the Falcon's door and things like that. And it was very cool. And then the preview started, and they showed, previews for every big movie, including Star Trek, which actually got booze, which is interesting. And sort of, that's fine. Different strokes for different folks, right? But then when the movie started, and as you said, Connor, said Luke Skywalker has vanished, I looked at Corey and I slapped my leg, and I just looked down and put my hands over my forehead, and I thought, it's here. Episode 7 is here, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. So we talked about how we saw these films and how we felt being announced, and going into the movie. What were sort of Connor had mentioned, how are we going into those movies? But we've already sort of discussed that. But how did you guys feel sort of the days and weeks after The Force Awakens? Connor, let's start with you.
All right. Well, after I saw it for the first time, I saw it on the opening on I believe it was Thursday night, when around midnight, and most of my friends hadn't really seen it yet. Actually, on the second day, I went with my dad and Mattia and Calvin and Tristan, some of my best friends, to the movie theater, and they saw it, and I had to, it was really hard to keep my mouth shut about what was happening. And that was kind of true for most of the weeks after that. I had to wait till my grandma saw it and stuff like that to talk about it openly in the house, and wait till my dad saw it and stuff like that. But after that, it was just a lot of questions. I talked with my cousin Nick, who lives not here, so I'd call him and stuff, and he had seen it elsewhere. And me and him just had like long phone conversations about who we thought Snoke was, and who Rey's parents were, and all these other details of the movie. And it was just so amazing that all these people, people from school and just people I knew came up to me, and I'm kind of known at school as the person who really likes Star Wars a lot. And, these people were coming up to me and asking me about certain things. And certain times I'd say, I don't know, you have to wait for 2 years for the next movie. And other times I could answer their questions. And it was just amazing that all these people were really excited about this movie. And, after I saw it, I was so excited to, I saw it a couple of times in the theater, and then I was really excited to get it on DVD. It's actually kind of funny. I had to wait a little bit longer for the DVD because I was on a school trip, kind of like a really long sleepover school field trip kind of thing with my whole grade. And the Rebel season finale came out while I was gone, and the digital HD download came out when I was gone. And so that whole week I was kind of very, very excited to get home and watch The Force Awakens at home and watch the Rebels finale and all that stuff. How about you guys?
Yeah, it's interesting because I can't really think back to how I felt after episode 3 too much. I don't
was
remember.
Was that your first date with your wife, or was that episode?
That was episode 2.
Okay.
So that one does rank a little higher for me because of that.
Absolutely.
And it's yeah, but that it's for episode 3. I can't remember like what I felt afterwards, like necessarily the days after. I don't honestly remember, but it's just as I think about it now. You were
sitting on a park bench feeding squirrels.
Yeah, and sad.
Talking about lightsabers,
maybe. But as you know, it's funny because it's like it's as much as I don't necessarily talk about the prequels a whole lot or necessarily gravitated towards them first. My kids do. My kids, even though they didn't grow up with them, and I originally showed my kids the original trilogy first, and then they saw the prequels. So, but they still gravitate towards episodes 2 and 3 more so than any really any of the other films, other than episode 7 recently. But they like it because it's the characters. They like Jango Fett and they like Grievous, and they like some of the parts in it and such. So it's interesting to see their perspective a little bit. With me not being so keen on those films, but it's interesting to see them that they gravitate towards those at having seen all those, with not having seen them in the films in the theater or growing up with that aspect of getting into the films themselves. But for episode 7, I think it's after having seen it, I definitely want to see it right away again. And I remember seeing it with my parents, my brother who was in town at the time around Christmas. I went and saw it a second time, and I remember sitting there waiting in line because we got there kind of early to kind of beat the crowds. And they were kind of asking me some things about it. And I said, well, you just need to wait a little bit. They were like you said, Connor, people were asking me about it. Like, what's going to happen to this one? I said, you literally were like 10 minutes from the showtime. You just need to wait. It's funny because like they're not necessarily all that, into Star Wars as much as I guess I am. So it's like they're just casual viewers watching a film. And it's interesting to think about it that way because they're just taking it in because it's kind of a cultural thing to do. If you want to does that make sense? Pop culture type thing to take in, and they'll see it once, and that's good with them. So, seeing it again with my kids, then they're excited, and you talk about these generational feelings. As far as my parents are older, so they obviously had seen Star Wars originally in the theaters themselves. And, never got into it, but, seeing this new film, there's always really great, really exciting to see their perspective compared to my kids' perspective at a younger age. And maybe it's just because they're younger and excited about it and had, kind of been influenced by my fandom as well. So it's interesting to see them, come away from the film and kind of see their perspectives as far as, oh, yeah, it was a great film compared to, Dad, that was awesome. I want to see it again right now. And they're going nuts and falling on the floor and stuff like that and throwing popcorn. And so it's so much fun.
Theater floors are dirty.
That's true. A bunch of popcorn and stickiness, yes. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's so cool to think about, how other people take it in and digest the films themselves, coming from different generations.
I agree. It's the impact is something that I think you'll probably both agree that the film gets better every time you see it, but it also feels different depending on who you're with, whether it's with your family or your friends. Like the first time I saw it with you, and the 2 older boys, and my brother-in-law and my brother, and a bunch of our friends, and it was amazing. And then the second time I saw it with just my wife. We were in Las Vegas for a trip, and it worked out. She wanted me to go to this restaurant, and it was very, very high in the air. Like I don't know how many stories up, but the elevator took so long to get to where we were going that my ears popped in the elevator. That tells you how tall it was. And I don't like heights, but I went on it because it was important, and it was like a birthday present. Just that whole trip, that whole experience. And then I said, hey, you know how I went on that thing and risked my life to go on that super giant restaurant? Maybe you should go see The Force Awakens with me. And she does not, of the 2 of us, like I will go see a movie anywhere no matter what's going on. But she necessarily isn't as crazy about seeing a film during a vacation. But because she's awesome, she's like, you know what, let's do it. Let's go see it. And she had a ball. And that was fun to see it with her. Not only was it the second time for me, but I was able to just enjoy it without any preconceived notions or anticipation. I could just sort of take in the film. And then the third time I took my mom and my brother. It was the week of Christmas, and I think there's nothing more wonderful than seeing a movie around Christmas time anyway. And then it's a Star Wars movie that just adds to the nostalgia. And like you two were saying, seeing Star Wars is an event. Mm-hmm. It's an experience. It's more than a movie. Even if you're not a diehard Star Wars fan, there's a palpable feeling. There's an electricity in the theater, going there, driving home, talking to your family and friends about it. I think that's what makes Star Wars so special.
Absolutely. And speaking of something special, we kind of threw this question in there for kind of all us to answer too. It's, why is Star Wars important to you? And it's, I'm sure it's something we've kind of talked about before on the show, but I think it's the kind of question that seems to change within time, as new things come up. I know recently Dan and I talked about the trailer for Rogue One and how that it got us excited for that film, and we were kind of not necessarily wishy-washy about it, but you just weren't sure. But that heightened sense of importance of Star Wars, it kind of came out of the blue in a sense. But in Star Wars in general, maybe it's something that you're excited about for collecting, or I guess the films coming out, or just wanting to, like we talked about, experience these films with your family and friends, and getting to have those experiences and memories with yourself. So Connor, we'll start with you. Why is Star Wars important to you?
Star Wars, it's sci-fi, it's fantasy, it's way different than our world here. And what I like to do is, I watch the movies, read the books, collect the toys, and I guess read the comics and stuff like that of Star Wars. And I'll do it pretty often. But it just kind of, when you watch the movie or it takes you in, or read the book, it takes you into that world. And, sometimes you can do that to distract yourself from, well, for me, I do that to distract myself from all the homework that I have to do. But you can go into that world and you can learn all about that. You can just enjoy it. There's all these different Star Wars mediums, and they're still coming out. There's books coming out, every couple months, and the comics weekly. And, you just absorb all that, and you're like, wow, this, you find what you like, I like this series of comics, or I like these books. And then you can really just talk with other people like yourselves and just talk about Star Wars. And that's just real fun.
It is. It's great. Star Wars means a lot to me. I mean, I've talked about it a lot for almost 3 years now, which is pretty remarkable in its own right. But and just some of my earliest, best memories as a child are tied into Star Wars. My dad wasn't necessarily the father that I had wanted, but some of my best memories and positive memories of him are revolved around Star Wars too, which makes it extra special for me. Experiencing it with all three of my boys in different ways for different reasons. We were talking about from 16 all the way down to 2, and they all take something out of it that's very different, very generational, very different, very unique. Our show, the books, the comics, the toys, the collectibles, going on a hunt for collectibles, experiencing the movie, and then being able to analyze and interpret Star Wars and write about it and talk about it with friends and family and our CWK family. It's pretty spectacular. I could spend 2 hours just answering this question. What about you, Corey?
Yeah, it's a good way to put it too, and it's, I talked about this before. It's being generational and coming to it with a more mature attitude. I think now, having kids and being married and life kind of moving on for me as time goes on, it's important to me, I think, because it's as a way to reconnect with my childhood and, like you said, a good memory, some good times, things I grew up with that made me feel happy, made me feel like I was part of a world that I could jump into and kind of escape the woes of younger years and obviously older years too. It's a way to sit back and just take in stories of characters, and it's like sitting around with friends and enjoying and telling tales and such,
right?
Like we would do here, just talking about things we love or or experience we've had, and just rooting each other on and seeing where our paths may lead. That it has to do with because of Star Wars. And I want to say, too, it's important to me because it's important to friendships I've made, even through this podcast. You talk about the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. It connects us in a certain way where, we were getting a new piece of merchandise, or we're, excited for the new trailer, or we saw something online that we're excited to talk about or blog about or whatnot. And it's kind of promotes, a happiness that's you can't capture, in other essences, other franchises and such you can, but it's a way to connect friendships and share the love of our hobbies, I guess. And it's funny because it's it's in a way it's important to me because it binds my family together a little bit in a sense too. It's has me and I'm able to talk to my kids about it, and maybe that's not necessarily true for every family out there, every relationship out there, friends and such. It allows me to open the door to conversation, allows me to open the door to experiences and memories. So it's always gonna be something that's gonna carry through my life, I would hope, in some prominent way. But definitely lots of fun too.
So Connor, before we get to our 5 questions, which we are very excited to hear your answers to, is there anything else you wanted to say about The Force Awakens, what it means to you, key moments in the film, and what you're looking forward to for Episode 8?
All right. When I went into The Force Awakens, kind of waiting in line, I was also kind of nervous. I went to, I tried not to drink anything, and because I was worried about that I'd have to go to the bathroom halfway through the film. And, that was what I was worried about. But, I went through the film, and I came out, and I was like, wow, that was really cool. And, I had Saber Forged lightsaber with me that I had got a couple months back, kind of dressed up in my Star Wars shirt. And when I went, I believe it was at the Pacific Science Center. Yeah, the IMAX there. And there was a small news crew there. And, I kind of posed for them. Similar story to yours, Dan. But
look at you. Yeah.
Well, I never really found the picture or the story online, but I think they got it. Just kind of posed. They were taking pictures of the lines and the people there. But just to talk a little bit about the film, I just thought it was everything I hoped for. I went in there, really excited to see what J.J. Abrams had, created, and I came out. I said, that was better than I expected. It's not that I had like low expectations for this movie or anything. It just blew my expectations out of the water. Let's see. Yeah, I think there's not much more to say about it.
Well, I think that's a great way to put it, because I think it exceeded everyone's expectations. I mean, it made so much money and it's caused so much conversation, and so many wonderful things have come out of this experience. And it really has been great seeing the Star Wars saga and those experiences through your eyes, Connor. We appreciate it so much. And we're very excited, as I just mentioned, to ask you our 5 questions. And they are, of course, the things we ask all of our first-time guests to see what we have in common as Star Wars fans, because we're much more alike than we are different. And I think it's important to emphasize that. So, Connor, first question. What is your favorite Star Wars movie?
I'm going to say I've always liked Return of the Jedi as my favorite movie. The Ewoks I thought they were really creative in making all those traps. They were a little silly, but I never disliked that part. The space battles in that movie, especially over Endor, I thought they were just wow. Also, you get to see you get to see Yoda in this film also. Yoda's sad death, and that's one of the most, I feel, that's just the saddest part of this movie. And I believe I I hadn't seen it for a while, and then a couple months ago I saw it, and I just kind of started to tear up when Yoda's death came, because I don't know, it just meant Yoda has been one of my favorite characters, and just to see him in Jedi, that was really cool because I really liked him in The Empire Strikes Back. Also, let's see, what else makes that movie really good? Yeah, I really liked Boba Fett too, like most people. And he has a somewhat prominent role in this film, and just all the aliens in this film. There's so many of them, especially Admiral Akbar. He was cool. Unfortunately, I think the actor that played him or voiced him has recently passed.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
It is.
It really is. And I was going to say, speaking of characters and such, who is your favorite Star Wars character?
This is a harder question.
If it makes you feel better, you can change your mind when you come on again in the future.
Thank you. Can I say two characters?
Sure.
Cool. So, my two of my favorite characters, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I just thought he's so, I don't know. There's so many quotable lines from him throughout the prequels and then Episode 4 especially, and I thought he was always really cool, and I like to see his growth throughout the prequels and then Clone Wars. James Arnold Taylor did a really good job of him in the Clone Wars. And then my other favorite character is C-3PO. And, I've always liked C-3PO. He's just been one of my favorites because, he knows all these things. He can tell you the odds of all these things. And after reading, most of the atlases and maps for Star Wars, I wanted to, be like C-3PO and know everything and stuff. And also, Anthony Daniels just very devoted to C-3PO and doing the voices in everything, even like the Lego Chronicles or Yoda Chronicles. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. He's a wonderful. There are a lot of Star Wars actors and legends that are great ambassadors for the franchise, and he's certainly one of them. This is interesting to see how you respond to this one. What is your favorite line of dialogue or film moment?
All right, I'm gonna have to say it's gonna be a scene. The scene in Return of the Jedi, when they first walk into the briefing room with Admiral Akbar and Mon Mothma, and they're talking about how many Bothans are dying here and there, and there's a giant Death Star projection, and you see you kind of see more of the rebellion there than when you see them on Yavin. You can see the rebel troopers in the background, and you can see their leaders and some of their the high up command is there, and they're just all like they're getting together and making a plan, and they're just like, yeah, let's go do it and defeat the Empire. And I always like that scene.
It's certainly a great scene, and it's interesting to hear everybody's perspective. And it's everyone seems like we have something different. And I think it's so much fun to hear that. So the next question is, if you collect, what is your favorite collectible that you own?
All right. Well, like I said, I have the closet behind me.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna quickly turn around and look up. Okay. All right. I'm gonna have to say it's going to be. It's gonna sound kind of weird, but like the heads or the helmets. I like decapitated helmets on my shelves. So I have Jango Fett's, which makes sense because, well, if you haven't seen episode 2, then you should, because he gets decapitated. I have a clone trooper from episode 3. And let's see, I have some more micro heads here, and more of the helmets. I have Kylo Ren's Black Series helmet, and I have a Resistance pilot. I just have a bunch of different helmets that I always thought those were cool, I have some ones that you can put on your head, and I have some ones that are just kind of small display ones. And that's probably my favorite one to collect.
Very cool. Well, it sounds like you've got a great collection. And if you have a snapshot of that, you should put it on Twitter so we can check it out, because it sounds pretty neat. And before we close out our 5 questions, the last one, what particular messages or themes about the Star Wars saga resonate or speak to you?
I feel like throughout the original trilogy and then the prequels and all the books and the comics and all the other Star Wars media, that I feel like the one that resonates with me most is kind of the hope, or the fighting for the greater cause against being the underdog, like the rebellion or the resistance, and fighting for the cause, kind of just having hope, and even though you may be outnumbered, that you're still going at it. And it worked for Leia and Han and Luke and Chewie and the rebellion, and it looks like it's working for the Resistance and the Force Awakens, and in a bunch of the books you can see that there's all these small groups that are just kind of doing their part to help the galaxy.
Well said, Connor. It really has been awesome getting your perspectives on Star Wars and your critical lens that you are processing the saga through. So we greatly appreciate your time and your talents. How can listeners get in touch with you if they want to ask you a question or just say hello?
All right. To email me, you can email me at newsofthegalaxy@outlook.com. That's newsofthegalaxy@outlook.com. And then
you've got a Twitter account too.
Oh yeah, my Twitter, I recently made it. It's also News of the Galaxy, and you can find me there. I don't think I have a picture yet. I think I should put that up. But that you can also find me there. But I'm more active on my Outlook account than Twitter. So, but yeah, you can still contact me there.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Connor. It's been a joy to speak with you, and we look forward to having a cup of coffee with you again in the near future.
Oh yeah, it's been a pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Our topic for show number 54 is a look back at Star Wars Rebels Season 2. What were some of the more poignant moments of the second season, and what have we learned about the characters throughout this journey? Joining us on this topic is the always engaging Kanan himself, Freddie Prinze Jr. Be sure to send us an email or MP3 with your thoughts, comments, questions, and opinions to feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. And who knows, your question might be read on the air.
I like the sound of that.
Echo 3 to Echo 7. Ano, buddy, do you read me?
I saw part of the message.
I seem to have found it.
Our first email comes from Daryl Cooper. He writes, "Hey Dan and Corey, Coffee with Kenobi is the first Star Wars fan podcast that I've listened to, and I'm loving so far. I've wanted to tune in for one for a while, but there's been so much choice, I just couldn't pick one. However, when I saw the Coffee with Kenobi referenced on StarWars.com, the name instantly grabbed me, and it always helps. Obi-Wan is my favorite character too. I have a thought on the direction of the new trilogy, so please bear with me. Daisy Ridley has very recently said that she was told about Rey's backstory and who her parents were in the set of The Force Awakens, which has led to much fan uproar that she is not a Skywalker, and this destroys the theme of the saga, i.e. the Skywalker family. However, my thoughts on this is that the prequel trilogy is about Anakin Skywalker and his descent to the dark side. The original trilogy is about Luke finding himself and coming to terms with finding out his father wasn't who he thought he was, aspired to be a Jedi like his father, then distraught upon learning who his father really is, but then finding the love and compassion for his father to turn him back to the light side of the Force. Now, if Rey turns out not to be a Skywalker, then possibly the new trilogy may be sticking to George Lucas's original vision for the trilogy and be about fathers, sons, and grandsons, and Kylo Ren may be the focus character arc. By name Kylo Ren, Ben Solo is not a Skywalker, but in blood, he is Luke's nephew and Anakin's grandson. Let me hear your thoughts. Thank you, and I apologize for the length of the email. Daryl Cooper. Well, thanks, Daryl. Appreciate the email writing in. And thanks for tuning in for us and finding us on StarWars.com. We appreciate that. And to give us a chance, too. I mean, we definitely love hearing from all our fans and family members of Coffee with Kenobi. And, this is a tricky situation, Dan. I think we'll tiptoe around this a little bit because we do like to have perspective on certain items, and maybe we'll kind of look at it in the context of, The Force Awakens, of what we've seen so far. And obviously, let's talk. I mean, Rey is still waiting to kind of figure out where she comes from, and being led to that by certain characters in The Force Awakens. Maz Kanata's one that's kind of a guiding figure, and of course, she's made friends with Finn too. It's just almost the self-discovery that she's walking right into, and I think that we're gonna, obviously end up finding out in Episode 8 where she does truly come from, and it still is a big mystery as far as where her lineage is and where she comes from. But it's something too. It's, I mean, you think about Ben Solo in this too, his lineage, and him, obviously he has a big grasp on Darth Vader, and obviously has a big affection for him, his grandfather. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, his perspective of looking at past generations and connecting it to this generation might be a bit about Ben Solo and his struggle for being called to the dark or called to light. I love that struggle with him. I think that's makes him a fascinating character. I love what he's done so far in the films that we've seen, and he's radically different than what I expected, and I look forward to seeing him in Episode 8.
I agree, and I think you're right, and this is a hard one to answer because we don't know, and we don't really speculate on the show. We don't look at rumors, and we want people to come up with their own theories, as you have, Daryl, and it's pretty neat too. I gotta say, I appreciate your perspective very much, and as I've said before, even if Rey's parents are George and Judy Jetson, that's not important to me personally, just because I want to see where they take us. And her parents are important because they have her and they created life when they had her. But she is important because she's defining who she is in the universe, which is pretty neat. And whatever her lineage is, that will come out and it will be important. So I'm just going to kind of wait and see. And Daryl, be sure to check back in with us frequently, and especially after we find out who our parents actually are, because it'll be interesting to see where that is. And here's something random, by the way.
Yeah.
Did you see Entertainment Weekly's been putting out a lot of interesting little tidbits about The Force Awakens. Did you see what they had said with J.J. Abrams, and they had told Anthony Breznican what the ashes are whenever Kylo Ren puts down his helmet?
I see that. Was it the enemies of his, or the ashes of his enemies?
Yes.
Pretty
that's
dark.
That's pretty macabre. That's beyond it. I don't know if that's officially what they're saying it is, but I mean, based on that article, it sure seems that way. And if that's true, I still stand by my original statement that this guy is beyond redemption.
Yeah, it's interesting because, as much as we see him fight that in Episode 7, being drawn to the light side, and which I thought was fascinating too.
Yes.
The more we get to know him, and obviously at the end of Episode 7 where he's full on, bitter and dark and mad and angry and hate is just driving out of him. I don't think he's such a redeeming character as we might think he might be. But I still have hope. I mean, I guess I look at it of a good perspective. I want him to be good. Obviously, it's because I enjoy his character. I'd like to see him, grow as a character and become, something for good, obviously, and see where that stands. But like you said, the ashes of his enemies are kind of in that little bowl there, and it's to go back and see that scene and know that it's kind of gives you goosebumps and kind of like, oh wow, so this guy's not just does he carve up computer and interrogation chairs.
Yes.
That he actually has a creepier side where he keeps the ashes of his fallen enemy. So that's crazy.
From Topps comes the all-new digital card collecting app, free to download from iTunes or Google Play. Star Wars Card Trader.
For the first time ever, collect and trade everything from legendary 1977 Star Wars cards to new cards featuring exclusive content from Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens.
All from the comfort of your mobile devices. Star Wars Card Trader.
These are the cards you're looking for.
Chewie, get us out of here!
If you would like to respond to our question of the show, have a comment, or just want to say hello, send us an email or MP3 at feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or if you have a specific question or comment for either of us individually, email us at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com or coryc@coffeewithkenobi.com, or visit us at coffeewithkenobi.com and click on the Contact Us section, or comment on one of the stories featured on the site. If you enjoy the show, please write a review in iTunes or Stitcher. You can also like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, as well as keep up to date at our Twitter feed at Coffee with Kenobi. You can also find us on Tumblr at coffeewithkenobi.tumblr.com. If you enjoy the jazz music, the album is Eye to Eye by Steve Torok.
Give the evacuation code signal.
That's it for show number 53 of Coffee with Kenobi. A huge thank you to Connor Daniels for joining us and discussing The Force Awakens through the eyes of a new generation. Another big thank you to Steve Sansweet for returning and sharing his time and passions with us. Be sure to become a member of Rancho Obi-Wan today via the link on our show notes.
A special shout out to Joe Taylor, Dennis Keithley, Daniel, Angela Souse, Neil Lowry, Mediocre Jedi, Nick DeCalandria, Mike Winder, Aaron Harris, Mark Sutter, Jesse, and Mike Audette for their contributions to our Coffee with Kenobi Patreon page. By supporting our Patreon page, you help our show in so many ways and can also win a Coffee Chat podcast of your own. Check out our webpage or the show notes for more information. You can also support our show through our Amazon.com, Fandango, Cufflinks.com, Her Universe, and Zach Designs affiliate links on the site. Thank you for your generosity to the Coffee with Kenobi family.
Be sure to check out the other shows in our Coffee with Kenobi family. Legends Library, Rebels Reactions, Comics with Kenobi, and Lattes with Leia, which are all here on the Coffee with Kenobi feed. A big thank you to our media specialist, Liz Dullard, our Coffee with Kenobi bloggers, Nick DeCalandria, everyone who contributed to this show, to all you out there who listen and email Coffee with Kenobi. Don't forget to send us your comments and opinions on the topic for show number 54, a look back at Rebels Season 2.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
There's no one here. Move along. Move along.